Today, the world is full of misinformation. News stories on the surface may seem real, but under closer scrutiny are fake. Corruption and fraud are everywhere. There's a better political news and information website, BackstreetGossip.com, where you'll find the latest stories and information that's circling the media world. You'll see stories of the day and stories that will be discussed tomorrow. BackstreetGossip.com will provide you with informative content that any reader would be amazed to gossip about. BackstreetGossip.com, providing information from Earth and beyond.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Morrison with Hub Radio Phoenix. If you're looking for secure news, the truth, and nothing but the truth, you found it right here at Hub Radio Phoenix.
Hey, folks. Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb here. With the increase in private businesses and even government organizations talking about mandating the vaccine, I wanted to let you know that here at the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, we do not mandate the vaccine. And as long as I'm your sheriff, we will never mandate the vaccine. We believe that your health choices are yours and yours alone. So whether you get the vaccine or don't get the vaccine, that's your private information. Here, we believe in America and freedom, and we're going to continue on with that. God bless.
Fake news and leftist commentary have left listeners looking for the truthful news, reasonable analysis, and real-life solutions to America's complex issues. Sound like an impossible task? Well, it's not. There's something new, honesty in reporting, something exciting, something that is cutting edge. Fighting Back is a Hub Radio production that takes a deep dive into the murky world of unbridled state, local, national, and international political intrigue. And of course, Fighting Back also has a softer side. Tune in every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. Google Hub Radio Phoenix, click on the link, and then click on Video Live to be inspired by new perspectives on daily issues. Fighting Back, clarifying the confusion of 21st century mayhem.
Hi, this is Liz Harris, and I wanted to give a shout out to Hub Radio Phoenix. They have been amazing, especially when I ran for political office. They helped broadcast me, let the world know, and now that I'm involved in election integrity and helping prove that there was massive fraud here in Arizona, they have invited me on their show many times, and I am forever grateful. So please do watch Hub Radio Phoenix for the truth. Thank you.
Located in downtown Phoenix, the Colden Law Group specializes in business and election law, civil and political litigation, as well as evictions and special actions. Call them today at 602-730-2985. That's 602-730-2985.
From the studios of Hub Radio Phoenix, it's the Jay Lawrence Show. Now, here's Jay.
I love that. I love the applause. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Thank you for letting us once again be part of your television viewing. We are very pleased to welcome as our guest this evening Thayer Verschoor. Now, we're going to talk to Thayer about ASRA, Arizona Republican Assembly, but in order to do that, first we've got to meet Thayer and find out an incredible background going back to the Trump administration. All right, let's start with the Trump administration, I think 2016?
2016, I was the deputy director for the campaign here in Arizona. So, yeah, and against all odds, with a person who had a fantastic and huge personality, got elected to be the president of the United States, and I had the opportunity to go back to Washington and work with him.
Campaign won. All right, now let's talk about what happened then. You went on to become the Director of Veterans Administration, or yes or no?
So after the election was over, they asked if we wanted to go back to D.C., and I said, absolutely, I'd love to go back there and work. And so when I first got back there, I actually started out on the beachhead team at the Department of Agriculture. And at the Department of Agriculture, I was working on a rural infrastructure project, and mostly I was kind of putting together some ideas about how we could move forward with the rural broadband and the connectivity out into the rural areas of the country. And being a kid who was born and raised down in the Yuma area and grew up out in, went to a high school with 350 kids and graduated with a class of 83, I was kind of familiar with the rural area. So that was a great experience. And then after 6 months, I had the opportunity to go over and work at the Department of Veterans Affairs and be their executive, be the Deputy Assistant Secretary of their Intergovernmental Affairs. And so
talk about that.
Yeah, so that was a really great opportunity for me because, as you know, I served in the Arizona State Senate for 8 years,
Right.
And so I was able to take that experience and those people who I met, because there's a lot of conferences you go to, so you meet you network with a lot of other legislators and across the country as well. So having the opportunity to work at the Intergovernmental Affairs. Basically, we covered all the governments in the country, in the country and outside the country that weren't Congress. So we covered state, local, county. We covered tribal governments. We arranged international visits as dignitaries would come in from other countries. So we had a great opportunity to work really closely with people, mayors and governors and legislators, and so that was a fantastic.
Thayer, how were you treated, for example, by people with whom you'd worked in our legislature? When you moved to Washington, did they treat you like good old Thayer? Oh, I remember. Or did they say, look who's there?
No, I think, I maintain a lot of those contacts. A lot of the people that I worked with were there. Actually, I'd been out of the legislature for several years before I went back there, because
Right.
I got out of the legislature in 2011, and so I kind of had a bit of a distance between being in the legislature and going back to D.C. But I worked with a lot of people because a lot of those legislators had moved on to other areas. Some were served on county board of supervisors, some served in other positions, and so I still worked with them. And so it was a great opportunity. I tell people, I said it was like being in it was very similar to being in the legislature. I wasn't voting on any type of policy or legislation, but I was able to work with a lot of the same people that you work with when you're in the legislature.
Our guest, Thayer Verschure. Thayer, when you say I worked with, what were some of the accomplishments? What does worked with them mean?
So a lot of the things that we did was we would help. There are cities that wanted to have outpatient clinics. So the VA does what they call community outpatient clinics, or CBOCs for short, right? And so those are the things that veterans can go to, that they don't have to go all the way into a medical center. They're kind of closer to where the veterans live. So a lot of communities were trying to get through some of the zoning issues and through some of the permitting processes and working with us to make sure they were getting all that proper kind of information. So we did a lot of that. One of probably the biggest things that I worked on back there was veteran suicide prevention. So we lose 20 veterans a day to suicide.
Really?
Yeah, and so it's very tragic, but we were able to work with the president, and he put together a roadmap to end veteran suicide. And so we worked with several of the other agencies, like HUD, for instance, because one of the problems is homeless veterans, and that leads to a problem. We worked with health services, because a lot of veterans have addiction problems, and so those things are also problematic. And so we worked with faith-based organizations. One of the things I worked with as part of my job in Intergovernmental Affairs was to work with faith-based organizations. And so one of the things that the studies show is that veterans that are involved in the faith community are less likely to commit suicide because they have a network that's built up around them, a support
Sure.
network. And so that was really important, and that important work to bring all those people together to work on a solution to help bring the number of suicides down.
Did it work?
Well, it's working right now.
Yes.
So I mean, this was done in the last and was rolled out in 2000 at the beginning of 2020, right before everything kind of got shut down with COVID. COVID didn't exactly help the problem because one of the problems for veterans that commit suicide is isolation, and so that didn't help. And we're seeing that now, and there's studies showing that. I mean, that's one of the problems with a lot of the policies around shutting everything down is it leads to this isolation. And so we see, we were even seeing before I left, before the president's term ended, upticks in child abuse and spousal abuse, domestic abuse situations going on, and those things exacerbate the problem with that veterans have when they get home.
When I was in the legislature, I was chairman of the Veterans Committee in the House, and I spoke frequently about you and the work you did and the suicide rate. And the fact that I urged people to call the veteran in the neighborhood and just say hello, was that one of the things you found enthusiastic?
Yes, and that was one of the things that we talked about and was part of the plan for instance, veterans don't really like to go admit, they don't talk about being veterans. They kind of come home and they just want to be a part of something, but they don't want to be necessarily singled out. And so one of the things that we urged, like faith-based organizations, and we worked with mayors and county local governments to really kind of work to identify the veterans in their community. And one of the things that's important is not just identifying, saying hi and asking them how they're doing is important, but what veterans really want to be able to do is they want to be able to get out in the community and serve the community. Veterans join the military because they want to serve the country. And so that's what they want to do. They want to serve. And so one of the things that really helps veterans get back into the community and integrate back into the community and avoid suicidal tendencies is getting involved in giving service back to the community, because that's what they do.
Did you find particular communities that were especially helpful in this regard?
Well, one of the great things about working at the VA is everybody loves our veterans.
Sure.
So, it was so easy to work with all of the communities all over. I wouldn't say one was necessarily better than another. There were some mayors that made it their task to end veteran homelessness. And so while I was there, I worked with our homeless program, our veterans homeless program, to end veteran homelessness. And we had several cities that were committed and achieved zero veteran homelessness. Now, it's a functional zero because you can't house everybody, because not everybody wants to be housed. But functionally, they got to what HUD calls functional zero. So,
Thayer, how has the COVID epidemic, affected the veteran community as much as anyone else?
Well, like I said earlier, one of the issues with the COVID problem was the isolationism. So, that's one of the signs is when a veteran starts to isolate themselves, that is a warning flag. And so, when COVID struck and they started shutting everything down and telling people to stay home, that was a bit of a problem. And so I think that was important that people really reached out. And so, but veteran service organizations like, the VFW and the American Legion and disabled veterans, and a lot of churches, a lot of the communities really stepped up their game in reaching out to veterans and making sure they were okay.
You talked about organizations like VFW and other veterans groups. They became, they're very important now, but they became even more important. And in fact, now, some of them are refusing, many are refusing to do masking and stay clear of them, and that's good for veterans.
It is good for veterans. People want to mask, they should mask. And an organization, most of the organizations, I think, have done a really good job in saying, you know what, the decision is your decision. You got to decide what's best for you. And that's where you have to, and that's one of the things that help veterans integrate back into is they're empowered to make decisions. When decisions start being made for people, that becomes problematic. So mandates aren't as helpful as education. And we found this through the years with almost everything. For whatever reason, the government always wants to give its heavy hand, to mandate, to make people do what's right. Well, you're going to have better participation. You're going to have higher success rates when people voluntarily make those choices based upon what they learn. And, the science isn't necessarily supporting all of these mask mandates and vaccine mandates.
Right.
And so that's a problem.
I guess there, for sure, one of your other jobs, Chief of Staff for the Arizona Republican Party. Let's talk about that.
Sure. Well, what do you want to know?
Sounds like that was a great job.
Being Chief of Staff was a very exciting job. Of course, you're working in a very partisan field, but when you have majority in the state. So one of the accomplishments that we had when I was the Chief of Staff, for the first time, and unfortunately the only time in the history of the state, we elected to every state office, from governor to the corporation commission, state mine inspector. Both the senators were all elected, and both of our U.S. senators. So all those statewide offices were held by Republicans. We had a majority in the House and we had a majority in the Senate. That was a great accomplishment. A lot of people forget that up until Barry Goldwater, Arizona was predominantly a Democrat-controlled state. And then Barry Goldwater came along and kind of started turning around things. When I grew up down in Yuma, my parents were Democrats. When I registered, when I graduated from high school in '79, I voted for Ronald Reagan as a Democrat. And then I joined the Army, and in '84 I switched parties and I voted for him the second time around as a Republican. But that's when Ronald Reagan kind of shifted, and Barry Goldwater kind of shifted the state to being a red state. And so, but for years we had never controlled all the statewide offices until Tom Morrissey and he was the chairman of the party, but then by the next cycle we started losing some of those seats again.
We still see Tom around frequently.
Yeah, Tom's he's the mayor up in the town of Payson, right, which is a beautiful town, and I don't blame him for living up there.
When did we change? When did all of a sudden, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about your job as president, but when did this start changing from a Republican state to now it's questionable? Now, hopefully, that's going to change because Biden has done such a screwed up job. Hopefully it'll change.
Yeah, we kind of the same thing happened when he was the vice president and Obama was the president. What they did with Obamacare and so many of the policies in the Middle East were disastrous. And when under Obama we saw the caliphate grow, and all the brutality that came along with that. And so a lot of people were just tired of those policies that weren't enforcing our laws to protect our border.
Let me interrupt you for a second. We'll get back to this. Thayer Verschure is our guest. I'm Jay Lawrence. I'm glad you're here tonight.
You have a great business, terrific products, outstanding services. So where is everybody? It's simple. They don't know you're here. Why not? We didn't tell them. Well, let me introduce you to the Media Maven. She is the expert in getting your advertising message to the right people in the right places for the right prices. She can make your business a household name. She can make this claim because she's been doing this for years for large and small businesses. You need an expert who knows who to talk to and how to make the best deal for your business. She has the right radio and television contacts for your budget, whatever it is. That's Kathy, the Media Maven. She can put you on the map, the one that leads to success and prosperity. Call Kathy, the Media Maven, at 602-524-0947. That's Kathy, the Media Maven, at 602-524-0947.
When it comes to roof work, people ask, do you know a guy? Let me save you a little time and money. Call me. I'm Lori Clark, owner of Right Way Roofing. Our family started in the roofing business in 1963 on the promise, there's only one way, the right way. We protect your roof with thick, waterproof, rubberized asphalt, not felt paper. So when it's time to repair or replace your roof and you need a guy, I'm your girl.
We're Right Way Roofing and we do it right. We'll always keep you watertight.
They have P.O. boxes on site where you can receive and pick up your mail anytime, and their knowledgeable and courteous staff will find a way to ship that awkward or heavy item. You can even have your packages picked up and delivered for a small fee. Their motto is, if you can imagine it, we can ship it. Drop in on the good folks at Pack Mail and let them do the work for you. Pack Mail can be reached at 602-971-2300 or email at info@weshipphoenix.com. That's Pack Mail, 602-971-2300 or info@weshipphoenix.com.
You're watching Jay Lawrence on Hub Radio Phoenix.
Our guest is Thayer Verschoor. We were talking about what happened to the Republican Party, and I know we'll get into this more because you are working at bringing it back. But what happened all of a sudden with the Obama administration? We became far more Democrat.
It started. I mean, again, if you go back to the history of Arizona, it's kind of, been a back and forth. But like I said, when I was the chief of staff for the Republican Party is when we finally reached our zenith there. And it's still a battle. And unfortunately, what we've seen is, I think what's going to be important is that we secure our elections. This was a problematic situation in 2018.
We're supposed to get a report tomorrow,
yeah.
I think, from the committee examining, and that committee had better show what we expect.
Well, I think it's more important that they show what the truth is.
Yes.
It's not really necessarily what we expect, because what we expect is the truth. And that's what everybody in this state wants, including Democrats. Maybe not all the elected Democrats, and maybe some of those people who are, have a vested interest. But, having all these drop boxes, having election tallying that goes on for days and days and days, that is problematic. And that needs to be addressed, and that needs to end. We need to. When I was in the legislature, we made sure that we kept our paper ballots. So there was a push when I was in the legislature to go to all electronic voting, and we knew back then that it was a problem back in the early 2000s. And so, that's one of the things that we're going to, as a group here that I represent with the Arizona Republican Assembly, our goal is to make sure that we hold Republican elected officials and party officials accountable to the party or to the Republican platform, which is passed every 4 years. And we have, we want to make sure that people are standing tall for protecting our borders, for protecting the laws of our land, for supporting our police, for being pro-life, for protecting our Second Amendment rights, for protecting our rights to assemble. A lot of people don't realize that these mask mandates and some of these social distancing mandates where they shut down churches and they didn't allow people to assemble, that is absolutely a violation of our Constitution.
You did something when you were a legislator. You were involved in expanding undocumented immigration enforcement. You were involved in that as a legislator, and that's way back then. It's a problem today.
It is a problem today, and so, of course, one of the reasons a lot of illegal immigrants come to this country, aliens come to this country, is for work. A lot of them come here for the benefits. I mean, I don't blame people that want to come to the United States. We have the best country in the world. I don't care what the Democrats say. What a lot of the Democrat members of Congress just and what of a lot of our school professors, and that's another thing that we really want to address in ASRA is, the schools are out of control. They're indoctrinating, they're not teaching. They're not teaching kids, they're not teaching our children how to think, they're telling them what to think. And that's a problem, and we're seeing this over and over again, and we're starting to see pushback from parents, which finally is happening because this has been going on for 60 years. And that's why they're so bold now, is because no one has held them accountable. And so it's time to start holding our school boards accountable and our school administrators accountable. When they blatantly stood up, and it started with the election integrity, Jay, when the Board of Supervisors told the state legislature, we don't have to follow your rules. Well, you're a subdivision of the state of Arizona. You're not an autonomous, separate organization.
You follow the rules.
That's right. And when they pass laws and they send you subpoenas, you're supposed to obey them. And these school administrators and these school boards that said we're not going to obey the law, that is a criminal act by definition, and that needs to be, and they need to be held accountable. And so one of the things that we're going to work in, you have teachers that are politicizing the classroom. They've been politicizing the classroom in our universities for years, and now those teachers that went through the universities are going down into the K-12 system, and they're politicizing the classroom. And we need to start holding them accountable so that they are teaching the curriculum that the state of Arizona says you're supposed to teach, not what the AEA or some other union tells them they're going to teach.
Thayer, you did one other thing that fits in today. You authorized the governor to challenge federal healthcare mandates. And today, we have healthcare mandates that don't fit.
They don't fit. So this is what, I always found it interesting. The cities would come and say, well, you don't want the federal government telling the states what to do. Well, the difference is our federal system is set up that the federal government derives its power from the states. Local governments derive their power from the state. The state is the ultimate legal authority in the country. That's the way our Constitution was set up. People don't look at it that way. And so, when the federal government, not just health mandates, education mandates, we saw that problem. They were mandating stuff to us, and a lot of those mandates came unfunded. So not only were they mandating them to us, but they weren't providing the funds to comply with the mandates. And so, we were tasked with trying to fill budget deficits with either cutting other areas of spending, or unfortunately some people were supportive of raising taxes, which I've never been supportive of, because as far as I'm concerned, government is bigger than it needs to be already, and we don't need to spend any more money on it.
Tom Horn, when he was in office, fought Tucson Unified School District and some of the things they were doing, and he won.
Yes, and he won. And too many times I hear elected officials say, well, we have to do this because this is what, if we don't do it, we're going to lose the funding. Well, we've seen a lot of places where when we stand up and challenge, we actually win. And unfortunately, too many of our career bureaucrats in government, administrators, they don't want to stand up and fight. Too many of our elected officials don't want to stand up and fight. And so it's important. I love the fact, I live out in the Gilbert area, and I have Warren Peterson, and I have Travis Grantham and Jake Hoffman, and they're doing such a fantastic job. And I love the job that they're doing, that was my district. That was with Eddie Farnsworth and Andy Biggs now, who's in Congress. And so actually it was kind of interesting. So Andy Biggs and I got elected to the legislature at the same time. We were seatmates the whole time I was in there. I was in the Senate and he was in the House.
Great legislator. I remember, let me tell you one experience. I was at Andy's house. Judy and I went to Andy's house on election night. Food everywhere. They were going to have this giant Andy will be elected. Mm-hmm. And it came close.
It was very close.
The woman, I don't even remember her name, but she was very close. And we snuck out, left early, when it looked as though Andy might lose. He didn't.
He never gave up.
No, he never did.
He never gave up. He never doubted. So, but the interesting thing is, I mean, we've been on a path together. We started going to district meetings at the same time back when we became precinct committeemen, and we were neighbors. And so we went to the legislature at the same time, and we went back to Washington at the same time. He went back as a congressman, and I went back working for the Trump administration. So that was pretty nice, you know, to be back there while Andy was in Congress. But
that had to be fun, being part of the Trump administration.
You know, I tell people ask me about Washington, and I say, you know, for me, it was like Mr. Smith goes to Washington every day. You know, to be able to go out on my lunch break and walk around the White House for lunch, that was pretty fun to see all the wonderful monuments that represent the freedoms and the sacrifices that Americans have made and fought for, and it just was, you know, it was just a fantastic thing. I mean, yeah, you had this. It was swampy, you know. You had a lot of resistance to what President Trump was trying to do there, whether it was in housing, whether it was in, you know, education. You know, I mean, the president was so in favor of allowing parents to choose the best education options for their children. And, you know, and quite frankly, you know, I hear people say, well, you know, we can't do vouchers, they're unconstitutional. But, you know, we've had vouchers for 75 years. That's what the GI Bill is. The GI Bill is the most successful program in the country, and it's a voucher program. And it allows veterans to choose where they want to go to get their education. You know, I used the GI Bill too, and I used those benefits, and I didn't have to go to the school they told me I had to go to. I could go to any of the accredited institutions that were recognized in the state. And so, and quite frankly, when we did the Choose VA and gave veterans the choice to go into private doctors, you know, that was an expansion of the same concept. And those were concepts that we've been fighting for ever since I was in the legislature, because people will make better choices for themselves.
We are going to be discussing ASRA, the Arizona Republican Assembly, and we're going to take a break right now and get ready for that discussion, because it's going to be an important discussion. You are now president of ASRA, and you are working at changing it. Thayer Verschure is our guest. I'm Jay Lawrence.
Are you tired of the long lines and impersonal service you get at the post office? Well, we have a solution for you. Pack Mail is an all-in-one mail center conveniently located in the Fry Shopping Center at 3218 East Bell Road, right here in Phoenix. Owned and operated by Arizona residents Mark and Vicky Battaglia, you can be sure of getting personalized professional service. They will pack, crate, freight, and ship your items anywhere in the world. They work with all the major carriers like DHL, UPS, USPS, and Federal Express. Need an address for your home business or startup company? They have P.O. boxes on site where you can receive and pick up your mail anytime, and their knowledgeable and courteous staff will find a way to ship that awkward or heavy item. You can even have your packages picked up and delivered for a small fee. Their motto is, if you can imagine it, we can ship it. Drop in on the good folks at Pack Mail and let them do the work for you. Pack Mail can be reached at 602-971-2300 or email at info@weshipphoenix.com. That's Pack Mail, 602-971-2300 or info@weshipphoenix.com.
You have a great business, terrific products, outstanding services, so where is everybody? It's simple. They don't know you're here. Why not? We didn't tell them. Well, let me introduce you to the Media Maven. She is the expert in getting your advertising message to the right people, in the right places, for the right prices. She can make your business a household name. She can make this claim because she's been doing this for years for large and small businesses. You need an expert who knows who to talk to and how to make the best deal for your business. She has the right radio and television contacts for your budget, whatever it is. That's Kathy, the Media Maven. She can put you on the map, the one that leads to success and prosperity. Call Kathy, the Media Maven, at 602-524-0947. That's Kathy, the Media Maven, at 602-524-0947.
Hello, this is Laura Paxton with the Jay Lawrence Show Disaster Report. An official water shortage has been declared by the federal government for Lake Mead in the lower Colorado River Basin for the first time ever. Total water storage is at 40% capacity, down 49% from last year, a decline. And this for 2022, it's going to be all the way through. It's going to be in a state of shortage. So we expect a lot of water cuts and a lot of conservation coming up soon. And for the fires that are burning, big fire in California, the Dixie Fire, is still only 33% contained. And it is the first fire ever to burn across the Sierra Nevada from the western slope down into the eastern floor of the valley. So that's another first. And also last week, in 7 days, there were 7.0 or greater earthquakes around the earth, which is also a pretty new record. So make sure you enjoy your life and be grateful for every moment that we have that's peaceful and beautiful. Have a great week. Thank you very much.
Are you tired of the long lines and impersonal service you get at the post office? Well, we have a solution for you. Pac Mail is an all-in-one mail center conveniently located in the Fry Shopping Center at 3218 East Bell Road, right here in Phoenix. Owned and operated by Arizona residents Mark and Vicky Battaglia, you can be sure of getting personalized professional service. They will pack, crate, freight, and ship your items anywhere in the world. They work with all the major carriers like DHL, UPS, USPS, and Federal Express. Need an address for your home business or startup company? They have P.O. boxes on site where you can receive and pick up your mail anytime, and their knowledgeable and courteous staff will find a way to ship that awkward or heavy item. You can even have your packages picked up and delivered for a small fee. Their motto is, if you can imagine it, we can ship it. Drop in on the good folks at Pac Mail and let them do the work for you. Pac Mail can be reached at 602-971-2300 or email at info@weshipphoenix.com. That's Pac Mail 602-971-2300 or info@weshipphoenix.com.
When it comes to roof work, people ask, do you know a guy? Let me save you a little time and money. Call me. I'm Lori Clark, owner of Right Way Roofing. Our family started in the roofing business in 1963 on the promise, there's only one way, the right way. We protect your roof with thick, waterproof, rubberized asphalt, not felt paper. So when it's time to repair or replace your roof and you need a guy, I'm your girl.
We're Right Way Roofing, we do it right. We'll always keep you watertight.
You're watching Jay Lawrence on Hub Radio Phoenix.
Glad you're here with us. The Jay Lawrence Show, our guest, Thayer Verschoor. We want to talk about something very important, and that's ASRA, the Arizona Republican Assembly, and Thayer is the new president of ASRA. Now, we'd like to say that ASRA is the conservative wing of the Republican Party. Expand that.
So, when conservative wing, because we're the wing that believes in the party, the Republican platform. Like I said earlier, our mission is to make sure that our elected Republicans and our party officials adhere to the principles of the Republican platform. And so ASRA was formed in about 1994 with some good people, good freedom-loving people who believed in the Constitution, who believed in the Republican platform that Reagan had established in 1994 here, like Barbara Bluster, who served in the legislature, a good guy named Leo Mahoney, and a group of other folks that worked really hard to get it started. It started in California in about 1934 as the Republican Assembly. And the Republican Assembly, ASRA is part of a network, a national organization called the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. And there's about 23 states right now that have Republican assemblies chartered in them. And there's about three new states that are about ready to come on board. So we'll have about 25, 26 states here probably by the end of the year that are part of the Republican Assembly. So I got really active in the Republican Assembly back in the 90s. After I got out of the Army and moved back to Arizona to go to school and start my life here back in 1986, and I got involved in politics. I kind of grew up as a politician kid. My mom was the mayor of my the little town I grew up in called Welton, and while I was in high school, my dad served on the school board. That was kind of an interesting experience. And my mother was our history and civics teacher when I was in junior high. So I had her for my teacher. So I don't recommend that necessarily having your parent for your teacher in school is
Be
the
tough
best thing.
getting a bad grade from your mom.
Well, it was tougher getting a good grade, actually.
Right.
You know, so, but anyhow, so, you know, I when I got out of the Army, the division commander brought us all into the chapel there at I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, and he said, look, and he made this statement, and probably because of my upbringing, he said, when you go home, he goes, I encourage all of you to get involved politically. He goes, right now, there's only a handful of members of Congress that have ever served in the military, and they're making all these decisions. And you got to remember, in the early 80s, we were just coming off of the debacle in Iran, you know, with President Carter.
Right.
And of course, and that was preceded by the debacle in Vietnam, which there are shades of that now that we're seeing in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, I think a lot of Americans are very upset about, you know, the American blood that seems to have been spilled needlessly now that we've just abandoned Afghanistan the way we did. So anyhow, you know, I got involved in politics when I got out, you know, and got involved in the Republican Assembly back in the late 90s as I got more involved in politics. Then after I got out of the legislature, I got back involved in the Republican Assembly again and became the president actually before I started working on the Trump campaign. And we had built up to several chapters across the state, and we had almost 500 members. When I left to go back there, I didn't stay involved and engaged in it. And you know, I think, unfortunately,
those 500 members dissipated.
Well,
by the way,
you know, and this is kind of what we see this happening, whether it was the Tea Party movement, whether it was the moral majority back when Evan Meekum ran for governor.
Yes.
And you know, there was a lot of people that got really activated and engaged, and then after a year or two, they disengaged. You know. And so that's one of the things that we're going to work on is we've got, as conservatives and as people who love our Constitution and believe that this is a nation under God whose hand inspired our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, you know, we have to stay engaged, because when we're not engaged, it creates a vacuum, and that vacuum is more than happily filled by the opposition. And so, you know, and that's kind of what happened. You know, we came in, President Trump won, and a lot of people were highly engaged. And then after the victory, they're like, "Hey, our job is done. We can go back home." Because conservatives, they don't work in government; they work in the private sector. They have their own businesses. They have jobs that they go to. You know, where we see so many times the left, their business is government. That's what they want to do. They want to grow government. They want to be in government. They want to make government bigger. They want to do everything. It's the nanny state, right? They want to do everything for everybody. They want to make your choices for you because you're not smart enough to make your own choices. That's the problem with the left. You know, so they stay engaged because that's their goal. And conservatives just want to be left alone to be able to go about, raise their family and grow their businesses.
How do you keep conservatives involved in Ezra? How do you get elected officials? How do you get leadership? There is a cadre, if you will, of people that you must get involved. How do you do that?
Well, I think education is an important thing, and we're seeing that now. I mean, you know, and fortunately, you know, social media, even though right now the big tech social media are trying to shut down conservative voices and censor us, you know, that's actually been beneficial in getting people engaged, because people are seeing the disparity in liberty from what the left thinks and versus what Republicans and what conservatives think. And so we're actually seeing more people starting to get engaged again because they're seeing their liberties are being eroded. They're seeing the foundational things of government that we've trusted in for years not being trustworthy anymore. Things like our elections, things like our schools, and that's problematic there. And so, you know, and so one of the things that we have to do is we have to engage people, but and not just engage them, but we have to educate them to show them what they can do to make a difference, how they can become precinct committee members.
Conservatism? How do you tell people, here's what we believe? There's a constitution in which we believe.
So, and that's an important thing. Actually, in Title 15, our schools are required to post in their classrooms a flag,
Right.
a Constitution, and Declaration of Independence. They're supposed to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance every day in grades 4 through 12. The question is are the schools doing it? Because they've already demonstrated they're more than willing to disobey the law and ignore what the state has passed in statute that they're supposed to be doing. So, and that was what I was talking about a little bit earlier. The biggest problem is that, we see people get engaged at the congressional level, at the statewide level, at the legislative level, but they don't get as engaged in our city and town council races. They don't get engaged in our school boards. And quite frankly, we've allowed the school boards to be taken over by the unions, and that's who's running a lot of our school boards, and that's why they're so willing to ignore state law, because that doesn't go along with their agenda. And we have to start teaching people how they get engaged in those elections and how to run for office, because that's what the left does all the time.
You have a law.
Yeah.
There are laws that govern the things about which you're speaking. The governor enforces the law. Is the governor doing his job?
So one of the things that ASRA does, different than what most organizations, like most Republican clubs, they kind of meet and they allow a place for candidates to come and talk to constituents and to get signatures, and those things are important. But one of the things that ASRA does that is different from clubs or even the Republican Party organization itself is we will endorse in the primary. So we'll be holding an endorsement convention in May, in which with 60%, if you get 60% of the membership's vote, you will receive an endorsement from the Arizona Republican Assembly that you can use in your election to show. And to get that, we're going to have a candidate's pledge and part of that pledge is going to be talking about, do you support securing our borders? Do you support building the wall? Do you support allowing medical freedom to choose whether to prohibit these mask and vaccine mandates? Do you support election integrity laws? So those are some important things that we're going to be saying. If you want our support and you want our endorsement, you're going to have to do that, and then you're going to have to take this pledge saying that, and then we're going to show people, the ones who have taken that pledge and the ones who haven't taken that pledge, because that's one of the things that's really different about the Republican Assembly is we're going to be proactive. We're not just going to wait till the primary's over, because in too many legislative districts, in too many lower races, and as well as sometimes in the state race, the primary is the winner of the general election is decided in the primary.
Right. Our guest is Thayer Verschure. I'm Jay Lawrence, and I welcome you. Thank you so much for being part of our program.
Are you tired of the long lines and impersonal service you get at the post office? Well, we have a solution for you. Pack Mail is an all-in-one mail center conveniently located in the Fry Shopping Center at 3218 East Bell Road, right here in Phoenix. Owned and operated by Arizona residents Mark and Vicky Battaglia, you can be sure of getting personalized professional service. They will pack, crate, freight, and ship your items anywhere in the world. They work with all the major carriers like DHL, UPS, USPS, and Federal Express. Need an address for your home business or startup company? They have P.O. boxes on site where you can receive and pick up your mail anytime, and their knowledgeable and courteous staff will find a way to ship that awkward or heavy item. You can even have your packages picked up and delivered for a small fee. Their motto is, if you can imagine it, we can ship it. Drop in on the good folks at Pack Mail and let them do the work for you. Pack Mail can be reached at 602-971-2300 or email at info@weshipphoenix.com. That's Pack Mail, 602-971-2300 or info@weshipphoenix.com.
You have a great business, terrific products, outstanding services, so where is everybody? It's simple. They don't know you're here. Why not? We didn't tell them. Well, let me introduce you to the Media Maven. She is the expert in getting your advertising message to the right people in the right places for the right prices. She can make your business a household name. She can make this claim because she's been doing this for years for large and small businesses. You need an expert who knows who to talk to and how to make the best deal for your business. She has the right radio and television contacts for your budget, whatever it is. That's Kathy, the Media Maven. She can put you on the map, the one that leads to success and prosperity. Call Kathy, the Media Maven, at 602-524-0947. That's Kathy, the Media Maven, at 602-524-0947.
Are you tired of the long lines and impersonal service you get at the post office? Well, we have a solution for you. Pack Mail is an all-in-one mail center conveniently located in the Fry Shopping Center at 3218 East Bell Road, right here in Phoenix. Owned and operated by Arizona residents Mark and Vicky Battaglia, you can be sure of getting personalized professional service. They will pack, crate, freight, and ship your items anywhere in the world. They work with all the major carriers like DHL, UPS, USPS, and Federal Express. Need an address for your home business or startup company? They have P.O. Boxes on site where you can receive and pick up your mail anytime, and their knowledgeable and courteous staff will find a way to ship that awkward or heavy item. You can even have your packages picked up and delivered for a small fee. Their motto is, if you can imagine it, we can ship it. Drop in on the good folks at Pack Mail and let them do the work for you. Pack Mail can be reached at 602-971-2300 or email at info@weshipphoenix.com. That's Pack Mail, 602-971-2300 or info@weshipphoenix.com.
When it comes to roof work, people ask, do you know a guy? Let me save you a little time and money. Call me. I'm Lori Clark, owner of Right Way Roofing. Our family started in the roofing business in 1963 on the promise, there's only one way, the right way. We protect your roof with thick, waterproof, rubberized asphalt, not felt paper. So when it's time to repair or replace your roof and you need a guy, I'm your girl.
We're Right Way Roofing and we do it right. We'll always keep you watertight.
You're watching Jay Lawrence on Hub Radio Phoenix.
I'm Jay Lawrence. I'm glad you're here with us this evening. Our guest, Thayer Verschoor, president of the ASRA, Arizona Republican Assembly. And we're talking about the Republican Assembly and how we get elected officials, leadership generally. How do you get down to the grassroots? Because that's where the power is.
So a couple of things. So I talked about our endorsement that we do. I talk about the pledge that we're going to take. One of the other things that we do is we do a legislative scorecard. And so what we like to do with that scorecard is it grades the legislature real time when after they make votes, take votes on the floor and in committees. Right. Not just the flow votes, but we also include in that score the committee votes. Because as a legislature, a lot of games are played with votes in committees. So
I don't even want to think about it.
So we want to make sure that bad legislation needs to be killed at the committee level if it before it even gets to the floor, and then hopefully it doesn't make it through the floor. So that's one of the things. And then that scorecard, we want to make sure it gets out to all the legislative districts, all the clubs and organizations. Anybody who now with social media, there's so many folks out there that will put stuff out that we want to share that with them so that people see how their legislator is actually doing. The other thing that's important, one of the things I've always pushed for, is that we want every member of ASRA to be a precinct committeeman. They don't have to be. That's not a membership requirement, and that's another thing which I'll talk about. But we also want every precinct committeeman to be a member of ASRA. So every ASRA member a precinct committeeman, every precinct committeeman a member of ASRA. So, and the other thing that's different about ASRA than other clubs is you can't just join. When you join the Arizona Republican Assembly, you're saying that you pledge to support the principles of the Republican platform of the U.S. Constitution. And so even our own members have to take a pledge to support those things. And then, it's about getting out the vote. It's getting people out to vote. It's educating people on who's running, And so those are the kind of things that we do to get down to that grassroots level. And again, like I said, you know, we're losing the culture war in this country because we've lost control of our schools and our school boards. And we're going to focus really in on electing school board members, because I think that's going to be the real fight for the future.
Judy and I went to a meeting. My wife Judy and I went to a meeting maybe 3 weeks ago.
Right.
And you had a really good crowd at the meeting, people interested in Ezra. How are you setting up more of those meetings?
You know, so one of the things I like to do is I like to really kind of hold informal meetings, because, you know, people like to come and be engaged. They don't like to come and be spoken to. People have real concerns that they want to express, and they want to find out what other people are doing to address those same concerns, whether it's the schools, whether it's vaccine mandates, whether it's, you know, closing down their businesses. I mean, unfortunately, you know, we saw too many businesses go out of business in 2020,
Yes.
you know, because of these unconstitutional federal edicts, you know, and state edicts. I mean, you know, and the president really allowed the governors to do that, but there's way too many governors. And so you got, and the governors have a lot of power in these states, and they shut down too many businesses for too long. And so you know, people are energized right now because a lot of people lost their jobs, you know. And so, you know, I'm a big David Horowitz fan.
Sure.
You know, and he wrote the book called The Art of Political Warfare, and he said people are motivated by two things: fear and hope. And David Horowitz was raised by communist parents, and that's exactly how the left operates. They create fear, and then they create the white charger to come in. I'm the one who's going to save the day, you know. And so that's what they do. And so unfortunately, you know, we see too much of this game being played. But people are motivated for hope and fear, and right now, you know, they're afraid of, if they haven't lost their job, are they going to lose their job? You know, especially now they're starting to talk about variants. I mean, now not only was the vaccine not good enough, but now you got to get the third dose and the fourth dose.
Right. It's
you know,
just
and so when is it going to end?
to me.
Yeah, when is it going to end? And so people are fed up with being told how to live their lives, what to think, what to say, what to eat, what to drink. You know, and so, you know, educating and teaching people, and people don't even trust what they're being told anymore. I mean, you know, everything is people just are so tired of how they're being treated by their government, by their representatives, that they're engaging now. They're engaging. They're pushing back. And quite frankly, one of the encouraging thing is we're seeing that happen with the youth. The youth are, you know, they're rebelling against this oppressive tide of socialism that's sweeping across the country.
Yet. I haven't seen that.
You know, let me tell you what, I saw that when I was in D.C. So my office was right across from the White House, and Lafayette Park was right there. And I'm telling you, all the time I would go out to the park during my lunch break, and there would be 14, 15 high school age, college age students out there, young men and women out there wearing, you know, Make America Great Again, you know, wearing Trump, you know, 2020 stuff. So there were a lot of young people that were supporting that. And you know, that was really witnessed with the young man from Kentucky that was assaulted out there on that square. And unfortunately, he sued a couple of the network stations, which absolutely lied. The news agencies that absolutely lied, and quite frankly, the people don't trust the media anymore. They have an agenda, and they will say whatever it takes to pass their agenda, and so that's motivated a lot of people to really get engaged and to find out and to educate themselves.
You know what bothers me? I would like to see people involved. I would like to see grassroots involved, and people who get angry and say, this is not going to happen to me, and yet we see the media, and you mentioned it, saying that we're losing. They're saying that the conservative cause is dead, and I think that will just innervate the conservative cause.
Well, I think that's where it's backfired on them, Jay, because I agree with you. That's exactly what the left wants to do. That's been going back into the 1915 and 17s when Marx started his ideological rants. You know, that when they took over Russia, that's what they did, is they pushed saying, you're losing, we're winning, give up, surrender. You know, unfortunately, we saw that happen in Afghanistan, where the government just fled the country, didn't stay and fight, and we saw that happen. I mean, so we stepped up and we went into the Middle East when President Bush was the president, to support those allies of ours. We have to continue to do that. But the fact of the matter is, I think people are starting to recognize we're not the minority. We are the majority. I mean, Jerry Falwell used to call it the silent majority,
right.
Because we don't want to go out there and we don't want to have protests, and we don't want to burn and tear down statues and federal buildings. We don't want to do that. That's what the left did with Antifa and all of those crazy protests out there, and assault. They talk about assaulting police. Where was Pelosi, and where was the Democrat leadership when they were assaulting the police? They were talking about, we want to defund the police. Well, Azra supports our police. We don't want to defund them. We support the rule of law. That's what gives us our freedoms.
And if Azra can support funds for police,
Absolutely.
Azra will do that.
We want to support funds for police. We want to support our military. And we want to support freedom-loving citizens all across the country. And quite frankly, Ronald Reagan said it best, America is the last hope, the last light of freedom in the world. If the light of freedom and liberty is extinguished here in the United States, that it will go out across the world.
Trump accomplished a great deal.
Yes.
And what he has done is now being torn apart.
So what you saw President Trump, I mean, he was the most pro-life president we ever had.
Right.
But he ended the caliphate. A lot of people tend to overlook that. He did the Abraham Accords. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He did so many wonderful things to bring peace to the Middle East, and was doing it. I mean, that brutality was stopping where they were beheading Christians. And so, yeah, he did those things. And so, I think I really look forward to seeing a Trump candidacy.
A great example of what I'm talking about is the fact that he closed the border.
He closed the border. He built
Illegals
the
were
wall.
no longer entering, and now it's a flood.
Right. So now you're seeing the caliphates rising again in the Middle East, and you're seeing that the debacle on the border. The first thing that the Biden-Harris administration did was to stop enforcing the law and allowing those people to come in, the catch and release policy that was occurring under Obama to start happening again. Because under the president, those people were stopped before they came into America, and they had to stay in Mexico until they could prove that they were allowed to come in the United States.
Thayer, let me thank you very much for joining us. Next week, Sheriff Joe Arpaio will be on the show. Now,
great guy.
There's our guest.
I love Sheriff. I love the Sheriff. He's my sheriff.
When the sheriff is on, I can just say, "Hi, Sheriff. I'll go have dinner, and I'll come back in an hour." Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Thayer.
I'm Senator Sonny Borelli, and when I come to Phoenix, I always want to be informed, so I tune into Hub Radio Phoenix. You want to be informed? I suggest you do the same. Make sure you tune in.
Hello, Arizona. This is State Senate candidate Anthony Kern, District 20. And when I'm out fighting the woke culture in Arizona, I like to listen to the truth. I like to listen to the real scoop. And therefore, I listen to Hub Radio Phoenix, and you should too.
Hi, this is Liz Harris, and I wanted to give a shout out to Hub Radio Phoenix. They have been amazing, especially when I ran for political office. They helped broadcast me, let the world know, and now that I'm involved in election integrity and helping prove that there was massive fraud here in Arizona, they have invited me on their show many times, and I am forever grateful. So please do watch Hub Radio Phoenix for the truth. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marta Llamas, and I own a commercial cleaning company. Now that many people will be getting back to work, let's get your facility ready for them with our total disinfecting, wipe down, and fogging procedures. Our two-step process will help you ensure that your offices are safe. Call me today for a free estimate, and together we can help protect your employees. Thank you, and let's continue to stay safe.
Hub Radio Phoenix is an internet-based podcast platform providing numerous special interest programs reaching over 100,000 viewers per week. Hi, I'm Ron Lutters, executive producer of Hub Radio Phoenix. We don't pretend to be journalists, but we're not afraid to say what's on our minds. We thank you for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing to Hub Radio Phoenix. Stay tuned, stay faithful, as the best is yet to come.